In this video, I'm going to tell you the 5 things you should be talking about in your next performance review, and I'm going to share with you a really effective template that will help you gather all the important information over a 12-month period that you need to talk about with your boss. Rather than dread your end-of-year evaluations or your periodic performance reviews, I recommend you look at the benefits of having them, which are to get feedback from your boss on your skills and your competencies, to understand what areas you can improve on and how, and to share with your boss your career goals, challenges that you're going through, or your promotion aspirations. This is the time where you will get focused attention on you, so I recommend that you make the most of this 1-hour opportunity. When planning what to say in a performance review, you definitely need to talk about your achievements. This is really important because it shows your employer that you are worth the money they're paying you, that you have met your goals and expectations they have of you, that you have generated results for the company, and that you are committed to helping the company achieve their vision. Not all employees can show this. Think of someone who drags their feet, who performs tasks half-heartedly or doesn't perform them at all. They can't talk about these achievements in their performance review. As a result, they probably treat their performance review as though it's a meeting, something that they have to have with their boss and something they have no active input in. Now, I know because you are a high performer or a high potential that you are different. It's likely you've been recording your achievements since your last performance review in a Google Doc, in a digital note-taking app, or maybe your trusty notebook. Well, that information can be easily transferred into the template that I've created for you. This is the performance review planner that will help you track all the information that you want to talk about under each talking point that should be covered during the performance review meeting. We have 5 columns on this template, 1 column for each talking point. We have 4 different rows. Each row is allocated to a different quarter of the year. The idea behind this is as you go through the year, you continually update the information and record information that's relevant to you. So when you have your next performance review, you already know exactly what you're going to talk about. Think of it as a running document that you continually update throughout the year. If you want to download this template and use it for your own performance reviews, the link is in the description below. When thinking about what to highlight for your achievements, think about any large or difficult projects that you had completed throughout the year. Think of new skills that you have developed. This could be both technical skills or soft skills. Think of the results that you've generated for the company. Let's say you mentored and managed 5 new recruits to become successful salespeople. This is recorded in your performance review planner. Now, in your performance review, this is what you could say to your boss. Over the past 3 months, I've mentored and managed 5 new recruits. In the beginning, there was a lot that they had to learn, but now all of them are performing at either a satisfactory level or they are exceeding our expectations. This experience taught me a lot about managing people, and it also really helped me to develop and to improve on my communication skills too. So do you see, because this information was already recorded in your performance review planner, you knew exactly what you were going to talk about to your boss when they asked you about your achievements since your last performance review. Talking about your growth is another way of looking at areas in which you want to improve, the areas in which you want to grow as a professional. This is important to talk about in your performance review because it shows your boss that you have a learning mindset, which is really important as a professional, that you want to become a high potential, you have ambition to become a high potential, and that you are or you will be a more valuable contribution to the team or to the company in the future. Plus, your boss might not see how you've improved. They get busy and they don't always see the progress since your last performance review. It's really up to you to make this visible to them, and the meeting you have for your performance review is a perfect place to do this. When thinking about your growth, it's important that you reflect on the new skills or abilities that you've developed since your last performance review. The skills or abilities that you had before that you have improved on since your last performance review, and these skills and abilities that you want to develop or you want to improve on in the future. And it's also important that you think of both your technical and your soft skills in relation to this, because both of these are important and both of them are really valuable to the company. When communicating your growth to your boss, a technique I really find helpful is to use a before and an after example like this. Before I started mentoring these new recruits, I had very little experience mentoring people, but I was really excited at this opportunity. Now, after 3 months of mentoring, I can honestly say that this experience has taught me so much. Now I know how to communicate instructions to people clearly. I know how to delegate effectively. And I also know how to monitor people's progress towards a goal and to help them to achieve success. So do you see in this example how I incorporated the before and the after? I first talked about what I was like, what my abilities were like before I started mentoring these people. And then I explained to my boss what my abilities were like after this experience of mentoring people. And I find this before and after to be a really effective way to show your boss, to visually show them how you have grown since your last performance review. Once you've talked about your achievements and your growth, it's a good time to talk about your career goals. Because remember, you need to get something out of this performance review as well. It's not just a time where your boss tells you how you've been progressing. You need to be active in the performance review discussion, and you need to guide the conversation to help you get something that you want. For most of you watching, the something that you want is likely to be career progression in the form of promotions or pay rises or more responsibility. So talking about the career goals that you have is something that you definitely want to cover. When thinking about your career goals, reflect on the new responsibilities that you want to take on in the next 3 to 6 months. These would be short-term responsibilities that you want to achieve before your next performance review. Think about the career progression or promotions that you want in the next 12 months, or think about the long-term career goals that you have over the next 2+ years. It's really important that you talk to your boss about these things, especially the short-term career goals that you have, because you can't expect them to guess these things. A lot of the time, they might not realize that you're so ambitious and that you want to progress so much in your career. And like I said before, if you don't tell your boss these things, you can't expect them to guess. So it's really your responsibility to bring this conversation up during the performance review. Now, as for your long-term career goals, sometimes this might not include your current employer. If that's the case, then don't feel the need to talk about them in your performance review. You can simply include them in your performance review planner for yourself and just keep it as a record so you can keep an eye on how you're progressing towards that goal that you have. Now, here's an example of how to talk about your career goals. Over the next 6 months, I've set the goal of completing a management and leadership course. I really want to improve in areas like delegating, like conducting meetings, like giving feedback, and even motivating people. I know that if I develop these skills and improve on these skills, it will really help me to have a lot more impact in the company, and it'll also help me to achieve my long-term career goal of becoming a sales executive. Now we're moving on to the fourth talking point in your performance review, which is to ask for something. So this would generally be you asking for something that is related to your career. So for example, this could include more training in the area that you want to improve on. It could include more or less responsibility in your job. This depends if you're overworked or underworked. It could include involvement in a challenging project, working with a specific person. So this would be someone that you want to learn from. Or it could be the likelihood of a promotion or a pay rise. I know that asking for anything takes courage. The thought of someone saying no to you is so overwhelming that it can cause you to not ask for anything at all. But those people who advance quickly in their career, they do so because they ask. They ask for the more responsibility that they need. They ask for the promotions. They ask for the pay rises. So as hard as it feels to you, it's absolutely something that you need to do from time to time in your career. You certainly don't need to be forceful about it when you ask. Here's an example of how you can go about it. Since I've successfully mentored and managed 5 new recruits, and I have the career goal of improving improving my management and leadership skill, when do you think is a good time to talk about promotion opportunities? This type of question tells your boss what you want, but it does it in a way that is open rather than forceful. You're basically testing the waters to see what the likelihood of a promotion is. Your boss gets to hear what you expect, what you want from your career, and they can start to think about whether this is something that they can actually offer to you. And their response will give you a really good idea about your future in the company, so you can decide whether you're going to stay committed to that company or whether you're going to move on to another company. If you're an emerging leader, you definitely don't want to leave the performance review discussion without talking about the wider business environment. Simply approaching this topic immediately tells your boss that you are much more than a mid-level professional, that you're somebody who thinks about the bigger picture and you have ambition to reach higher levels. When talking about the business, you could talk about the team's short or long-term goals, the company's short or long-term goals, what your competitors are doing, or something that may have impacted the business environment or your industry recently. The wider you go, the more curious and intelligent you will appear, and it will make your boss look at you in a different way, in a more positive way. Rather than giving your thoughts on these topics, I recommend you ask your boss questions, because this will prompt them to share their thoughts, and from that you can then respond and share your thoughts as well. It starts a discussion rather than a one-way conversation. So here's an example of the types of questions you can ask. Ask questions about the company's productivity levels, the growth or the expansion or the goals they have for the future. Ask questions about your competitors, their new products, hiring sprees or freezes, expansions in other regions, or any news stories that might be relevant to them. Ask questions about things that are impacting your industry, like the environment, the government, or society. For example, I recently read an article in the Sydney Morning Herald that talked about how our competitor is expanding into the Asia-Pacific region, into countries like Vietnam and Malaysia. Do you think our company has these kinds of plans as well? And just like that, you have impressed your boss as somebody who is on top of the news, who knows what's going on in the industry, and who is curious as to how it is all impacting the company, meaning you are no longer thinking small, you are thinking big, like leaders do. You can learn so much more about performance reviews on my channel. This video up here is a great one that you can start with. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.